The bright blue sun of Slyth Prime cast long shadows across the landing pad as Commander Jackson Hayes stepped out of the Earth vessel. His dark uniform stood out against the amber landscape. Sweat already formed on his brow from the planet's heat, but he kept his face calm. As Earth's first ambassador to the Slytheian Confederacy, he could not show weakness. "Welcome to our world, human," hissed a tall reptilian official. The Slytheian scales shimmered with official markings. "I am Minister Zask. We have prepared your quarters according to the treaty." Hayes nodded. "Thank you for your hospitality. Earth looks forward to peaceful relations between our peoples." Several Slytheians behind the minister flicked their tongues in what Hayes recognized as their version of laughter. He ignored it. After 6 months of training, he knew the Slytheians looked down on humans as primitive mammals. His job was to change their minds. "As part of our customs, we have assigned you a mate," Zask said, his voice full of hidden meaning that Hayes couldn't quite understand. Hayes kept his face neutral despite his surprise. "That wasn't in the briefing materials." "It is our highest honor," Zask insisted. "To refuse would be a great insult." From behind the line of officials, a smaller Slytheian stepped forward. Unlike the others with their green and brown scales, hers were a soft blue-gray. Her eyes were wider, almost human-like, lacking the cold stare of the others. "This is Cisara," Minister Zask said. "She will be your ceremonial mate during your stay." Hayes noticed how the other Slytheians moved away from her, as if she carried some disease. Cisara kept her head down, her tail dragging on the ground behind her. "I am honored," Hayes said carefully, bowing to Cisara. He didn't miss the surprised looks from the officials or the way Cisara's head snapped up at his respect. "The honor is mine, Ambassador," she said in perfect English, her voice softer than the harsh tones of the other Slytheians. Later, in his private quarters, Hayes contacted Earth Command. The room was designed for human comfort, with controlled temperature and Earth-like furniture, but Hayes felt trapped. "They've assigned me a mate?" General Rodriguez's voice came through the secure line. "That wasn't part of any agreement." "I believe it's some kind of test," Hayes explained, keeping his voice low, or possibly a joke. "What do you mean?" "The Slythean they assigned Cisara. She's different. The others treat her like an outcast. I think they're using her to insult us without directly breaking protocol." General Rodriguez frowned on the screen. "Can you refuse?" "Not without causing an incident. Don't worry, it seems to be ceremonial only." Hayes ran a hand through his short hair. "I'll make it work." A soft knock interrupted their conversation. Hayes ended the call and opened the door to find Cisara waiting outside. Up close, he noticed more differences between her and the other Slytheians. Her scales were smoother, her movements more fluid. "May I enter, Ambassador?" she asked. Hayes stepped aside. "Please call me Jackson, or Hayes if you prefer." Cisara slipped into the room, her tail curling nervously behind her. "You should know why I was chosen for this role," she said without preamble. "I had my suspicions," Hayes replied, sitting down and motioning for her to do the same. "Care to explain?" I am what my people call defective," she said, sitting across from him. "I was born with, how do humans say it, too much empathy. I cannot suppress emotions like a proper Slythean. The Council thinks this makes me worthless." Hayes studied her carefully. "And pairing you with me is a joke," she finished. "They sent their broken outcast to the emotional human. They expect us both to fail and embarrass your people." Instead of anger, Hayes felt a smile form on his face. "Then we should disappoint them, shouldn't we?" Cisara's head tilted in confusion. "I don't understand. They want us to fail. Let's succeed instead." Hayes leaned forward. "Tell me about yourself, Cisara. Not what they say you are, but who you really are." For the first time, Cisara's mouth curved in what might have been a smile. "No one has asked me that before." Over the next few weeks, Hayes and Cisara developed a routine. In public, they performed their duties perfectly. Hayes attended meetings with the High Council where they presented humanity as barely civilized, while Cisara stood silently at his side as tradition demanded. But in private, they talked for hours. Hayes learned that Cisara had been a promising scientist before her defect was discovered. Cisara learned about Earth's cultures and history, fascinated by humanity's emotional depth. "Your leaders expected you to hate me," Cisara said. One evening as they shared a meal, she eating raw meat, he eating synthesized Earth food. "Honestly, they probably did," Hayes admitted, "just like your leaders expected you to despise me. Yet here we are." Cisara reached out, her scaled hand hovering over his. "Not enemies." "Friends," Hayes suggested, completing the connection. By taking her hand, the touch sent an unexpected warmth through him. Cisara's eyes widened, suggesting she felt it too. Unknown to them, their interaction was being monitored. In the High Council chamber, Minister Zask watched the screen with narrowed eyes. "The joke does not proceed as planned," another council member observed. "They appear to be forming a genuine connection." "Impossible," Zask hissed. "She is defective, but still Slytheian. No true bond can form with a mammal. Yet they grow closer each day," the council leader said. "Perhaps we should separate them." "No," Zask replied. "Let them continue. When the time comes to negotiate the trade agreements, we will reveal the deception. The humans' embarrassment will weaken Earth's position." Meanwhile, Hayes noticed Cisara becoming increasingly protective of him. When a group of young Slytheians hissed insults at him in the market, she stepped between them with a ferocity that surprised everyone. "You defended me," Hayes said afterward. "They were wrong," Cisara replied simply. "You are not what they think." That night, Cisara clutched her stomach in pain. Hayes found her curled on the floor of her chamber. "What's wrong?" he asked, kneeling beside her. "I don't know," she whispered. "Something is changing inside me. I can feel it." Hayes helped her to the bed. "Should I call a Slytheian doctor?" "No," fear flashed in her eyes. "If they think I am ill, they will take me away. Please just stay with me." Hayes sat beside her through the night, holding her hand as waves of pain passed through her. By morning she was better, but different somehow. Her scales seemed brighter, her eyes more alert. Neither of them knew it yet, but the cosmic joke had already turned serious. Inside Cisara, something impossible had begun to grow, something that would change both their worlds forever. 2 weeks passed since Cisara's night of pain. Hayes noticed changes in her that grew more obvious each day. Her scales now had a slight shimmer they lacked before. She moved faster, her reactions quicker than any Slythean he had seen. "You seem different," Hayes said one morning as they walked through the gardens of the diplomatic compound. The red flowers of Slyth Prime surrounded them, their sweet smell filling the air. Cisara looked around to make sure no other Slythians were nearby. "I feel different, stronger. My senses are sharper." She hesitated before adding, "And I dream now." "Slythians don't dream?" Hayes asked, surprised. "Not like this." She touched her temple. "I see images of places I've never been. I hear voices speaking languages I don't know." Hayes frowned with concern. "Should we find someone to help?" "Who?" Cisara's laugh was bitter. "The same doctors who declared me defective? They would only use this as proof I'm broken." Before Hayes could respond, his communication device buzzed. A message from Earth Command appeared on the screen. "Trade negotiations moved up. Council requests your presence immediately." "Something's wrong," Hayes said. "The negotiations weren't supposed to start for another month." Cisara's eyes narrowed. "They're planning something." The High Council chamber was vast, with tall stone pillars reaching toward the domed ceiling. 50 Slythean council members sat in raised seats looking down at Hayes like judges at a trial. Minister Zask stood at the center, his scales painted with ceremonial markings. "Ambassador Hayes," Zask began, "we have reviewed Earth's trade proposals and find them lacking." Hayes kept his face neutral despite his surprise. "The proposals follow all points agreed upon in our preliminary discussions." "Perhaps," Zask said, "but we question whether humans truly understand the value of what we offer. Your technology is primitive, Your resources limited. What can Earth provide that the Slytheian Confederacy needs? The insult was clear. Hayes opened his mouth to respond when a council member interrupted. Perhaps the ambassador's judgment is clouded by his attachment to his mate, the council member said, causing ripples of hissing laughter. Does he believe his relationship with our cast-off gives him special status? Hayes felt anger rise in his chest, but before he could speak, Cisara stepped forward from her place behind him. You assigned me to him to mock both of us, she said loudly, breaking protocol by speaking without permission. Yet now you mock him for accepting what you arranged. Gasps echoed through the chamber. A Slytheian female never spoke in council, without being addressed first. Silence, defective one, Zask hissed. Return to your place. No, Cisara replied, her voice steady. I have watched you manipulate and lie. This was never about trade. You wanted to humiliate humans to show your superiority. Minister Zask's scales darkened with rage. Guards, remove her. 2 armored Slythians approached, electric staffs in their hands. Hayes stepped between them and Cisara, but she gently moved him aside. I can handle this, she whispered. The first guard swung his staff. Everyone expected Cisara to fall, under the electric shock. Instead, she caught the staff with one hand. Blue energy crackled around her arm but seemed to cause no pain. With a quick twist, she pulled the weapon away and broke it in half. The council chamber went silent. The second guard rushed forward. Cisara moved faster than Hayes had ever seen any Slythian move. She dodged the attack and pushed the guard away with such force that he flew across the room, crashing into the wall. Impossible, Zask hissed. No female has such strength. Cisara looked at her hands in shock, as surprised as everyone else by her new abilities. Take them both, Zask ordered. More guards flooded into the chamber. Hayes grabbed Cisara's arm. We need to go, now. They ran from the council chamber, guards close behind them. Through the winding corridors of the government building, Hayes led the way toward the diplomatic compound where his Earth security team waited. But more guards appeared ahead, blocking their path. This way? Cisara pulled Hayes down a side corridor. There's another exit through the science labs. The labs were empty when they entered, everyone having gone to watch the council meeting. Hayes locked the door behind them while Cisara searched for another way out. They're coming, Hayes said, hearing footsteps in the corridor. Cisara suddenly doubled over in pain, clutching her stomach. Not again, she gasped. We don't have time, Hayes said, supporting her weight. Can you make it to the exit? Wait. Cisara stumbled to a medical scanner in the corner of the lab. I need to know what's happening to me. Despite the danger, Hayes helped her onto the examination table. The scanner hummed to life as Cisara programmed it. A holographic image appeared above them, showing Cisara's internal organs. Hayes didn't understand Slythian biology well enough to know what he was seeing, but Cisara's eyes widened in shock. That's impossible, she whispered. What is it? Hayes asked. Before she could answer, the door burst open. Guards poured into the lab, Minister Zask behind them. Stop them, Zask ordered. The female must be examined. Hayes grabbed a nearby chair and swung it at the first guard. More rushed forward. Despite her pain, Cisara fought with incredible strength, knocking guards aside. But there were too many. A guard's staff struck Hayes in the back. Pain shot through his body as he fell to the floor. Through blurry vision, he saw Cisara fighting to reach him. Enough, Zask shouted, as Cisara was finally restrained. He looked at the scanner, results still hovering above the table. His scales paled to a sickly yellow. By the ancient ones, Hayes struggled to stand. What is it? What's wrong with her? Zask turned to Hayes, his eyes wide with disbelief. Nothing is wrong with her. She is pregnant. The room went silent. Again, Hayes felt the world spin around him. That's not possible, he managed to say. Our species are completely different. It should be impossible, Zask agreed, his voice now filled with fear rather than anger. Yet the evidence is clear. She carries a hybrid child. Your child. Cisara looked at Hayes, her eyes showing a mix of fear and wonder. The dreams, she whispered. The changes in my body. This explains everything. Hayes stumbled forward, guards too shocked to stop him, and took Cisara's hand. How? I don't know, she said, but it's happening, and they will never let us keep it. Zask had recovered from his shock. Take them to the secure medical facility, he ordered. No one is to know about this. The council will decide what to do with this abomination. As guards led them away, Hayes leaned close to Cisara. I won't let them hurt you, either of you. I know, Cisara replied softly. We'll find a way out of this. Together. What had begun as a diplomatic joke had turned into something that would change both their worlds forever. The medical facility was cold and sterile. White walls surrounded Hayes and Cisara as they sat in a small room. Guards stood outside the locked door. 3 days had passed since the shocking discovery of Cisara's pregnancy. They've taken 6 blood samples, Cisara said, rubbing the sore spot on her arm. The scientists come and go, but they tell us nothing. Hayes paced the room. His attempts to contact Earth had been blocked. We need to get out of here. The door slid open. Minister Zask entered, followed by an elderly Slytheian in a white coat. The old Slytheian's scales were faded with age, but his yellow eyes were sharp. This is Dr. Vress, Zask said, our chief geneticist. Dr. Vress approached Cisara, studying her with intense interest. Fascinating, he hissed. Simply fascinating. What's happening to her? Hayes demanded. The doctor ignored Hayes, focusing only on Cisara. You should be dead, he said bluntly. Cross-species breeding should be impossible. Yet here you are, not only alive but thriving. Explain, Zask ordered. Dr. Vress pulled out a small device that projected a hologram of twisting strands of DNA. Normal Slytheian DNA, he said, then pressed a button. The image changed to show another DNA strand. And this is Cisara's DNA. Even Hayes could see the differences. Cisara's DNA had strange patterns and connections the normal DNA lacked. What you call her defect is actually a rare genetic variant, Dr. Vress explained. She carries ancestral genes from before the Great Purification. Cisara's head tilted in confusion. What purification? The one that happened 10,000 years ago, Dr. Vress said, his voice dropping to a whisper. When our people changed. Minister Zask hissed in warning. That is forbidden knowledge. They deserve to know, Dr. Vress replied firmly. Especially now. He turned back to Cisara. Long ago our people were different, more like the mammals we now look down upon. We reproduced through live birth rather than eggs. We had emotions we didn't suppress. That's just a myth, Zask said dismissively. Is it? Dr. Vress challenged. He projected another image showing an ancient stone carving of Slytheians that looked more mammalian than the current reptilian form. Our ancestors altered our genetics to become superior beings. They believed emotions made us weak, so they bred them out. They believed egg-laying was more efficient than live birth, so they changed that too. Hayes leaned forward. But some of the original genes survived. Yes, Dr. Vress nodded. In rare individuals like Cisara. That's why she has always felt different. She carries the genes of our true ancestors. Cisara's hand went to her stomach. And that's why I can carry a hybrid child? Because I'm partly mammalian already? Precisely, Dr. Vress said. The human DNA is activating genes that have been dormant in your body for millennia. Minister Zask had heard enough. This changes nothing. The council has ordered the pregnancy terminated. Such a hybrid cannot be allowed to exist. No. Cisara stood up, her eyes flashing with anger. The room's temperature seemed to drop as she faced Zask. You will not harm my child. The decision is made, Zask said coldly. Dr. Vress will perform the procedure tomorrow. Hayes stepped between them. We refuse. Zask laughed. You have no choice, human. This is not your world. You have no rights here. Then contact Earth, Hayes challenged. Tell them you're holding their ambassador prisoner. We already have, Zask replied with a smug smile. We told them you suffered a mental breakdown after forming an inappropriate relationship with a Slytheian. They're sending a replacement ambassador who will arrive in 2 weeks. By then, this problem will be resolved. With a final cold look, Zask left the room. Dr. Vress lingered behind. I'm sorry, the old doctor said quietly. I disagree with the council's decision, but I must obey. After Dr. Vress left, Hayes and Cisara sat in silence. The gravity of their situation weighed heavily on them. We need help, Hayes finally said. That night, as they slept, the door to their room slid open silently. Hayes woke instantly, ready to fight. A hooded figure stood in the doorway. Quiet, the figure whispered. I'm here to help. Cisara woke up and tensed. Who are you? The figure lowered its hood, revealing Dr. Vress. There isn't much time. The guards change in 15 minutes. Why are you helping us? Hayes asked suspiciously. Because what's happening to Cisara is more important than the council knows, Dr. Vress replied, handing them dark cloaks. There are others like her, others who carry the old genes. We live in secret, away from the cities. Cisara accepted the cloak. A resistance? A community, Dr. Vress corrected. We call ourselves the Awakened. For generations, we've preserved the truth about our past. Now, your child could be proof that we were right all along. They followed Dr. Vress through dark corridors, avoiding the guard stations. The old doctor knew the facility well, leading them through service tunnels and maintenance shafts. Where are we going? Hayes whispered as they reached an underground garage. To the Crimson Wastes, Dr. Vress replied, pointing to a hover vehicle. The desert region where our community lives. It's harsh terrain, so the government leaves it alone. As they boarded the vehicle, an alarm suddenly blared throughout the facility. Red lights flashed in the corridors behind them. They've discovered you're missing, Dr. Vress said, starting the engine. We must hurry. The garage door opened and they sped out into the night. Behind them, lights flashed as security vehicles began to mobilize. They'll catch us on the main roads, Cisara said, looking back at the pursuing lights. We're not taking the main roads, Dr. Vress replied, steering the vehicle toward the dark mountains that loomed ahead. There are old paths, only the Awakened know. As they entered the mountain pass, Cisara suddenly gasped in pain. Her body glowed faintly in the darkness of the vehicle. What's happening to her? Hayes asked, holding her hand tightly. Dr. Vress glanced back, his eyes widening. The pregnancy is accelerating. The hybrid growth pattern is unlike anything I've seen. Is she in danger? Hayes's voice was tight with worry. No, Dr. Vress said, sounding amazed. Quite the opposite. The child is sharing its energy with her, making her stronger. Cisara's pain subsided, and she sat up straighter. I can feel it, she whispered. Not just in my body, but in my mind. It's aware. Hayes placed his hand on her stomach. To his shock, he felt something. Not a physical kick, but a sort of mental touch, like a greeting. Did you feel that? Cisara asked, seeing his expression. Hayes nodded, unable to speak. Dr. Vress watched them with wonder. This is just the beginning, he said softly. Your child might be the key to reclaiming what our species lost long ago. Behind them, the lights of their pursuers faded as the mountain paths grew too narrow for larger vehicles. Ahead lay the unknown, a hidden community and the hope of sanctuary. For the first time since their escape began, Hayes allowed himself to feel hope. Whatever the future held, they would face it together. Dawn broke over the Crimson Wastes, painting the desert sand in shades of orange and red. The hover vehicle struggled up a steep canyon, its engine whining with effort. Dr. Vress guided it carefully between towering rock formations that rose, like giant fingers from the desert floor. We're almost there, he assured his passengers. Just beyond that ridge. Hayes looked at Cisara with concern. She had been quiet for the past hour. Her eyes closed, her breathing steady. The faint glow beneath her scales pulsed slowly. Is she all right? He asked Dr. Vress. Better than all right, the old doctor replied. The child is changing her, making her stronger. As if hearing her name, Cisara opened her eyes. They were different now, brighter with flecks of gold that hadn't been there before. I can feel them, she said softly. The others like me. We're getting closer. Dr. Vress looked at her with surprise. You can sense the awakened? Cisara nodded. Many minds, different from regular Slythians, more open. They crested. The ridge and haze gasped at the sight below. Hidden in a vast canyon was a city, not made of the sleek metal and glass of the main Slythian cities, but carved directly into the red stone of the canyon walls. Waterways flowed between terraced gardens. People moved through the streets, Slythians, but different from those Hayes had seen before. Some had fur along with scales. Others walked more upright, less reptilian in their movements. Welcome to Veskra, Dr. Vress said proudly, home of the awakened for the past 500 years. They descended into the canyon, drawing curious stares from the inhabitants. Children, actual children, not hatchlings, ran alongside their vehicle, pointing and laughing. Hayes noticed they displayed emotions openly, unlike the controlled expressions of the Slythians in the capital. The vehicle stopped before a large building carved into the central cliff face. A group of older Slythians waited on the steps dressed in simple robes rather than the elaborate garments of the High Council. The elders have been expecting you, Dr. Vress explained as he helped Cisara from the vehicle. How could they know we were coming? Hayes asked. Before Dr. Vress could answer, one of the elders stepped forward, a female with silvery scales and wise eyes. Because we have been watching for you for a very long time, she said in a warm voice. I am Elder Nissa. She approached Cisara and placed a gentle hand on her stomach. The first natural joining of our species in 10,000 years, she said with reverence. The prophecy fulfilled. Hayes frowned. Prophecy? Elder Nissa smiled. Come inside. There is much to explain, and you have traveled far. Inside, the building opened into a vast chamber lit by glowing crystals. The walls were covered with ancient paintings showing Slythians and what looked surprisingly like humans, standing together. In the center of the room was a large circular table where the other elders waited. Food and drink were brought as they sat. Hayes noticed the awakened ate both plants and meat, unlike the strictly carnivorous diet of normal Slythians. Your people seem very different from the Slythians I've met, Hayes observed, because we are what Slythians were meant to be, Elder Nissa explained. Before the Great Change, when the Purifiers decided to remake our species. The genetic alterations Dr. Vress mentioned, Cisara said. Elder Nissa nodded. 10,000. Years ago, a group of scientists became obsessed with perfection. They believed emotions made us weak. They wanted to create a purely logical species. They changed our genetics, making us more reptilian, cold-blooded in both body and mind. But some resisted, Hayes guessed. Yes. Our ancestors fled to the wilderness, preserving the original Slythian genes. For thousands of years we have lived in hiding, keeping the truth alive. Cisara touched one of the wall paintings. These look like humans with Slythians. How is that possible? Humans have only contacted your world recently. A male, elder named Kos, stood up. That is the greatest secret of all. Humans and Slythians share an ancestor. Hayes nearly choked on his drink. That's impossible. Is it? Elder Kos approached a sealed door at the back of the chamber. Let me show you something few have ever seen. The door opened to reveal a small room containing a single artifact, a broken piece of metal with strange symbols etched into its surface. It hummed with faint energy despite its obvious age. This was found in the ancient ruins to the north, Elder Kos explained. It contains genetic records from before the Great Change. Records that show humans and Slythians were once a single species, seeded across multiple worlds by beings we call the ancestors. Hayes stared at the artifact. If that's true, why don't Our scientists know this? Because the evidence was destroyed, Elder Nisa said sadly. The purifiers erased our shared history, believing it would make their perfect society stronger. Cisara touched the artifact. As her fingers made contact, it glowed brighter, responding to her touch. Images suddenly projected from it. Star, maps, DNA sequences, and pictures of worlds including both Earth and Slyth Prime. It recognizes your genetics, Elder Koss said with awe. You carry the purest form of the original genes we've seen in generations. A loud alarm suddenly blared throughout the city. One of the younger awakened rushed into the chamber. Hunters, he shouted. Government forces have found us. Elder Nissa turned to Dr. Vress. Were you followed? Impossible, Dr. Vress said. We took the hidden paths. It doesn't matter now, Elder Koss said grimly. They're here. We must protect the human and Cisara at all costs. Outside, the peaceful canyon had turned into chaos. Flying vehicles circled overhead as armored Slythian troops rappelled down the canyon walls. Citizens ran for shelter as weapons fire lit up the morning sky. This way, Elder Nissa urged, leading them through a back passage. There's an escape tunnel that leads to the mountains. As they ran, an explosion rocked the building behind them. Hayes pulled Cisara close, shielding her with his body. Stay with me, he whispered. They reached a small courtyard where several awakened waited with weapons. We'll hold them off, one said. Get to the tunnel. Before they could cross the courtyard, a sleek black ship landed blocking their path. The door opened to reveal a tall Slythian in elaborate black armor. Commander Hisk, Dr. Vress hissed. The Council's chief hunter. Commander Hisk stepped forward, his cold eyes fixed on Cisara. The defective female and her human mate, he said. Surrender now and the Council may show mercy to these rebels. Elder Nissa stepped forward. They are under our protection, Hisk. Leave our territory at once. Your territory? Hisk laughed. The Council has declared all awakened as traitors. This settlement will be cleansed today. He raised his weapon. Before he could fire, Cisara stepped forward, her body now glowing brightly. The air around her shimmered with energy. You will not harm these people, she said, her voice resonating with power. Commander Hisk hesitated, then fired his weapon. The energy blast stopped in midair before Cisara, hovering like a frozen star. With a wave of her hand, she sent it flying back, exploding harmlessly in the sky. Hayes stared in shock. The pregnancy had given Cisara abilities no one could have imagined. The other hunters raised their weapons, but Commander Hisk held up his hand, stopping them. He removed his helmet, revealing his face. Cisara gasped. Cisithar? Hello, sister, Commander Hisk said quietly. It's been a long time. Hayes looked between them in confusion. Sister? My clutch brother, Cisara explained, her voice shaking. We were separated when my defect was discovered. He joined the military while I was assigned to the Science Academy. Commander Hisk, Cisithar, stepped closer. And now I find you carrying a hybrid child, leading me to the largest nest of awakened ever discovered. His voice lowered. The Council was right. You are dangerous. Cisara's eyes filled with tears. Will you kill your own sister, Cisithar, and your sister's child? For a moment, conflict showed on the commander's face, an emotional response no pure Slythian should display. Then Hayes understood. He's like you, Hayes said softly. He carries the genes too. Cisithar's eyes snapped to Hayes. Be silent, human. But it was too late. Elder Nissa saw it too. You've hidden your true nature all these years, serving those who would destroy you if they knew. Cisithar stood frozen, caught between worlds. Then, slowly, he lowered his weapon. We have 10 minutes before my squad expects a report, he said quietly. Use them wisely. 10 minutes isn't enough time to evacuate the city, Elder Nissa said, her voice tight with worry. Cisithar looked at his sister, then at the human who had somehow managed to create a child with her. His training told him to complete his mission. His blood, the ancient genes he had hidden his entire life, told him something else. I can give you more than 10 minutes, he finally said. I can give you a chance. Hayes stepped forward. Why would you help us? Because my sister is right, Cisara replied. I carry the same genes she does. I've hidden it my whole life, rising through the military by being more ruthless, more perfect than any pure Slytheian. He looked at his hands. I've hunted my own kind to protect my secret. And now? Cisara asked softly. Now I choose a side. Cisthar turned to Elder Nisa. Do you have a communication center? 5 minutes later, Cisthar stood before a transmitter, speaking to his squad. The rebels have fled north. All units pursue. I will secure the settlement. Elder Kos watched with suspicion. Will they believe you? They have no reason not to, Cisthar replied. I've never failed a mission. As the sounds of ships moving north filled the air, Cisthar turned to the elders. That won't fool them for long. Hours at most. You need to evacuate everyone. Where? Elder Nissa asked. This has been our home for generations. The ancient ruins, Dr. Vress suggested. The ones where the artifact was found. The government avoids them because of the strange energy fields. Cisithar nodded. Good choice. My forces are instructed to avoid those areas as well. The energy disrupts our weapons and communications. The evacuation began immediately. The awakened moved with practiced efficiency, as if they had prepared for this day. Children and elders were loaded onto hover vehicles, while the able-bodied gathered supplies and weapons. Hayes helped where he could, but he was most concerned about Cisara. Her pregnancy was progressing at an alarming rate. The glow beneath, her scales had intensified, and she often paused, hands on her now visible belly, communing silently with the child growing inside her. How are you feeling? He asked as they prepared to board a transport. Connected, she replied with a serene smile. The child. It understands what's happening. It's trying to help. A sudden pain made her double over. Hayes caught her as her knees buckled. The baby is coming, she gasped. Now! Hayes looked around in panic. We need a doctor. Dr. Vress rushed over. It's too soon. She's only been pregnant for weeks, not months. The hybrid development is accelerated, Elder Nisa said, helping Cisara to a makeshift bed in one of the transports. The child grows faster than either human or Slytheian. As they prepared to help Cisara, a new alarm sounded. Cisithar rushed in, his face grim. They didn't believe me. The High Commander himself is coming. They'll be here in minutes. Elder Kos pulled out a weapon. Then we fight. No, Cisara said through gritted teeth. Too many will die. She reached for Hayes's hand. Help me outside. You can't move now, Dr. Vress protested. Trust me, Cisara insisted. The baby, we can help. Something in her voice convinced them. Hayes and Cisithar carried Cisara to the central plaza of the city. Above them, the sky darkened as a massive ship, much larger than the hunters' vessels, descended toward them. The Council's flagship, Cisithar said. The High Commander never leaves the capital. This has become more than a simple hunt. The ship hovered above the plaza, its weapon systems glowing with deadly energy. A voice boomed from speakers. This is High Commander Vask. The settlement is surrounded. Surrender the human, the defective female, and all awakened for processing. Cisara stood with Hayes's help, her body now pulsing with brilliant light. No! Her voice carried power that shook the stones beneath their feet. A beam of energy shot from the ship, aimed directly at them. Cisara raised her hand, and the beam stopped, held in place by some invisible force. The effort made her cry out in pain. The baby, she gasped. It's coming now. As Hayes and Dr. Vress lowered her to the ground, an extraordinary thing happened. Hayes felt a strange tingling in his arms. Looking down, he saw his own skin glowing faintly, similar to Cisara's scales. What's happening to me? He asked in alarm. The child, Elder Nissa said in wonder. It's connecting you both. Hayes felt a surge of strength and clarity unlike anything he had experienced before. Without thinking, he stood and raised his hand alongside Cisara's. Together they pushed back against the ship's energy beam, sending it back toward the vessel. The beam struck the ship's lower section, causing it to tilt dangerously. "Impossible," Slythar whispered. Cisara screamed as her body convulsed. Dr. Vress moved quickly, his ancient medical knowledge guiding his hands. "The child is coming." The High Commander's voice came again, this time tinged with fear. "What are you doing? Stop this at once." Hayes felt power flowing through him from Cisara and from the child that connected them. With his newfound strength, he reached out mentally toward the ship, feeling the minds aboard. Cold, controlled minds shaped by thousands of years of genetic manipulation. "They need to remember," Cisara whispered, somehow knowing his thoughts. "Show them." Together they projected images upward, images from the ancient artifact showing the true history of the Slytheian people, their shared ancestry with humans, the manipulation that had changed them from feeling beings to cold reptiles. On the ship, crews staggered as the images invaded their minds. Some fell to their knees, overwhelmed by emotions they had never experienced before. With a final cry, Cisara pushed, and Dr. Vress caught the child as it entered the world. "A daughter," he announced. The baby did not cry. Instead, she opened eyes that swirled with gold and blue, looking first at her mother, then at her father. When she reached out a tiny hand, neither fully human nor fully Slytheian, a wave of energy pulsed outward from her. The pulse washed over everyone. The awakened, Hayes, Cisara, Slythar, and all the Slytheians on the ship above. Where it touched, it awakened genetic memories locked away for millennia. High Commander Vask stumbled from his ship after it made an emergency landing. His eyes, once cold and reptilian, now showed confusion and wonder. "What have you done to us?" he asked, his voice shaking with unfamiliar emotions. "Not me," Cisara said, holding her newborn daughter. "Her. She has reminded you of what you once were, what you can be again." The baby looked around at the gathered crowd of awakened and government Slytheians. Where enemies had stood moments before, there was now only confusion and the first glimmers of understanding. "Her name is Unity," Hayes said, somehow knowing it was right, "and she is just the beginning." 6 months passed like a dream. Unity grew faster than any human or Slytheian child, reaching the size and abilities of a 5-year-old in half a year. Her skin was a beautiful blend of human flesh and soft blue-gray scales that shimmered in the sunlight. Her eyes remained the swirling golden blue that had first appeared at her birth. When she smiled, which was often, she showed both human emotion and Slytheian grace. The crimson wastes had transformed. What was once a hidden refuge was now a thriving center of the new Slytheian society. Ships came and went daily as more Slytheians arrived, drawn by stories of the miracle child and the genetic awakening she had triggered. Hayes stood on a balcony overlooking the growing city, watching Unity play with both awakened and former government Slytheians in the garden. Below, the changes in his own body had stabilized. His skin remained human, but with a slight shimmer beneath the surface. His strength and senses had enhanced, and the mental connection he shared with Cisara and Unity remained strong. "Thinking deep, thoughts?" Cisara asked as she joined him. Her own transformation had continued after the birth. Her scales now had a soft glow at all times, and she moved with a fluid grace that combined the best of both species. "Just amazed at how much has changed," Hayes replied, taking her hand. 6 months ago, I was an ambassador sent to a hostile world. Now I'm a father to a miracle child and part of a revolution." Cisara smiled. "A revolution without a single death. Unity's way is better than war." Below, Unity looked up and waved at her parents. With a thought, she sent them a mental image of her playmates and the game they had invented, a game that combined human creativity with Slytheian precision. "She's getting stronger," Hayes observed. "Her telepathy reaches farther every day, which is why the council has finally agreed to meet with us," Slythar said as he joined them on the balcony. The former commander had become their strongest ally, using his military knowledge to protect the growing community from those who still resisted change. Are they ready to accept the truth? Cisara asked her brother. They have little choice, Cisara replied. Over a third of the population has experienced genetic awakening since Unity's birth. Old emotions are surfacing everywhere. The careful order they built over thousands of years is dissolving. Hayes checked the time. The Earth delegation arrives today as well. Are we ready for them? Since establishing contact with Earth again, Hayes had worked to explain the miraculous changes on Slyth Prime. After initial shock and disbelief, Earth's governments had agreed to send a high-level delegation to meet Unity and witness the transformation themselves. As ready as we can be, Cisara said. Unity is excited to meet more humans. Later that day, they stood in the grand hall of what had once been the Elders' meeting chamber. Now expanded, it served as the center of government for the new society forming around them. Unity stood between her parents, wearing a special dress that combined elements of both human and Slytheian design. The doors opened. The High Council of Slyth Prime entered first, led by a transformed High Commander Vask. No longer cold and arrogant, his bearing now showed both dignity and humility. Behind the council came the Earth delegation, 5 humans in formal diplomatic attire, their eyes wide as they took in the mixed crowd of humans and Slythians. Welcome to Unity City, Elder Nissa announced. We thank both delegations for coming to this historic meeting. High Commander Vask stepped forward. When he spoke, emotion colored his voice, something that would have been unthinkable 6 months earlier. For 10,000 years we Slythians lived a lie, he said. We believed we had perfected ourselves by removing what we saw as weaknesses. Our emotions, our connection to other species, our very capacity to love and feel fear. He looked at Unity. This child has shown us what we lost. Through her, the ancient genes are awakening across our world. The lead Earth diplomat, a woman named Ambassador Chen, spoke next. Earth came to Slyth Prime seeking trade and alliance. We never imagined we would discover a shared ancestry and a new future for both our species. Unity stepped forward. Though only 6 months old, she carried herself with confidence beyond her years. When she spoke, her voice was clear and strong. I am not the first hybrid, she said simply. I am the return of what once was. Long ago, our ancestors walked the stars as one people. They were separated and changed, but the memory remained in our blood. She raised her hands and a holographic image appeared above them. Data from the ancient artifact, now enhanced by Unity's growing abilities. It showed star maps, genetic codes, and images of the ancient civilization that had seeded both Earth and Slyth Prime. There are others, Unity continued. More worlds with more branches of our family. And there are enemies too. Those who divided us long ago because they feared our united potential. The image shifted to show massive ships moving through deep space, ships matching ancient records found in both human and Slythian archives. They're coming, Unity said. They have sensed our reconnection. They will try to separate us again. Murmurs ran through both delegations. High Commander Vask turned to Hayes and Cisara. Is this true? Cisara nodded. Unity's telepathic abilities have grown. She can sense things across vast distances. The ancient enemies who once split our species have detected our reunion. They fear what we might become together. Ambassador, Chen looked troubled. Earth has only just developed space travel. We have no defense against an advanced enemy. But Slyth Prime has advanced weapons technology, Hayes pointed out. And now, with the genetic awakening, your people have both the logic of your engineered past and the creative emotion of your true ancestry. Together, Cisara added, our species complement each other perfectly. What one lacks, the other provides. Unity looked at both delegations with her swirling gold-blue eyes. This is why I exist. Not as a joke or an accident, but as a reminder of what we were meant to be. Hi, Commander Vask made a decision. Bowing deeply to Unity, he said, The Slythean Confederacy pledges its fleet and technology to this united defense. Ambassador Chen joined him, and Earth offers its creativity and determination. Together, we will face this threat. The formal treaty took mere hours to draft, record time for both species. Where once there had been mistrust and manipulation, now there was purpose and connection. Hybrid children like Unity were already being born across Slyth Prime as more humans arrived and more Slythians experienced genetic awakening. That evening, Hayes found Cisara and Unity watching the sunset from their favorite hill overlooking the city. "Remember when they sent you to me as a joke?" Hayes asked, putting his arm around Cisara. "A defective bride for the emotional human." Cisara leaned against him. "The greatest joke in history, the one that saved two worlds." Unity giggled, a sound that combined human laughter with Slythean harmonics. Through their mental connection, she shared an image, a vision of the future. Humans and Slythians working together, building ships, creating technology that neither could have managed alone. And beyond that, more worlds, more branches of their ancient family waiting to be rediscovered and reunited. "We have much to do," Cisara said, seeing the vision. Hayes nodded, feeling both the weight and the joy of what lay ahead. And it all began with a diplomatic prank. In the growing city below them, lights came on as evening fell. Humans and Slythians moved through the streets together, no longer separate species but parts of a greater whole, preparing for both the threat and the promise of the future. Unity took both her parents' hands, completing the circle that had begun when a reluctant ambassador met a disgraced Slythean female in a diplomatic compound 6 months and a lifetime ago. The joke had become destiny, the prank had become salvation, and the impossible child between them had become the hope of worlds.